Hey yo, little man, what's going on, everyone? Dribble here, bringing you another video, and this time we will be having another Blackwing discussion, talking about the main cards in a Blackwing deck, your average Blackwing build, and newer card choices that have been in the main that have been circling around all year. But before we get into that, please like and subscribe to our channel, as we are always creating banger content. But before we begin, just want to give a quick shout out to the guys that topped at YCS Sacramento, Luke, True Hero, and Pizza for topping that tournament because unfortunately I forgot to mention that in my last video. All right, now getting to the topic of this video, I have my bird boys with me once again. What's going on, boys?
What's up? It's me, Eric Chai. Yeah, I was on the last video. Just thanks for having me on again. You guys may know me as Chai T on Discord. Yeah, just happy to talk about the birds.
Hello, Harrison again. Hjeong on Discord. Yeah, thanks for having us here back to run it back.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so let's begin with, as I said, the main cards in a Blackwing deck. Now, for me, I think you have 9 flex spots to work with. And obviously, the first thing that most people probably will see is, whoa, why only 2 Bora? Well, lately, a lot of Blackwing decks have been having some success with only 2. And I can understand why, as Bora being the weakest Blackwing out of all the other Blackwings because it doesn't do anything by itself. What are you guys' opinions with people, some people moving to 2 Boras now?
Yeah, I think this mainly came up with AJT's tournament win down in Atlanta. I think he is a big proprietor, or like he's definitely pushing the agenda that Tubora is the correct way to play. Just adding more useful traps and more playable cards that don't necessarily do what Bora does. So because you have access to Armed Wing through Blizzard and pierce damage already, I can see why he feels that way. And yeah, I think if you were going to cut one, I think we've seen builds most commonly cut the Bora or the Blizzard just to avoid brickiness.
Yeah, I think Eric's nailed it on the head. Pretty much there are a handful of people showing success, and I think AGT and I think Hector's had a couple lists with Tubora. Uh, but yeah, I think most people think it's like the first one out because it's basically just like it's like Stratos food in a sense. Opposite of Shura food. But besides its piercing and its special summoning, it's not doing as much. I personally, still like three. But I think sometimes in siding, it is one of the Blackwings that I consider siding out.
Yeah, I think most builds will probably play three, but it's definitely if you wanted to cut one, you can definitely make room for something else you want to try. Two Bora can make sense in some builds.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And another Blackwing card also is the Vayu, where, there's always argument between 1 Vayu versus 2 Vayu. What would you guys say to those between, the ones that want to run 1 or run 2?
Yeah, so the biggest benefit of playing two Vayu is that you're resolving your punishes more often and harder. So like you're trading Icarus with your Vayu more often. You're resolving Shura for more effective cards. The downside is that you can now brick on double Vayu. You can brick on Vayu with no conversion. And I've talked to ProStorm about this, and yeah, I know he's a big advocate for the one Vayu until proven that two Vayu is better. But you can definitely play two. I played two for a long time. I played one for a long time. They both feel good. Maybe in like a shorter run tournament, like a 6 round tournament, I think double Vayu can definitely pay off because you're statistically not as likely to brick as much as you would in a longer run tournament. So, yeah, you get basically higher potential of your deck, higher ceiling. At and then with playing one Vayu, you're playing for more consistency as far as not bricking. But yeah,
Yeah, I think for me, the way I see two value, because I've mostly been playing with two value, is like you have one for Shura and one for either like a whirlwind chain, or if you brick on it, then it can be like Brio fodder. Um, so just kind of for me, and I think a lot of people who play two, it gives a little bit comfort in case you do brick on one. But as Eric also said, you can brick on two. So that's kind of the risk you carry with it. I have been playing with one recently, and I think the main difference is it's actually I think kind of significant where you have to be more considerate about your plays with like Shura and um, especially once you use the value. I think the Shura effects and going forward can be a lot different.
Yeah, I've personally had success with both one value and two value, and as someone who has drawn multiple values, which is very annoying, I have dropped down to one, and obviously one of the benefits is having the second value to special summon off of Shura. Because once you have the one already in graveyard, or let's say you draw one, at least now your Shura's it's not technically dead because you still have Gale and Kalu technically to special summon, but you have the second value in your deck to special summon off of Shura.
Yep.
Yeah, that I think that sounds pretty consistent. Yeah, I think one value. I really do see why people say it, but I guess that's also why here on our list, there's one because I think it's important to have one, and depending how you feel, you can go up to two. Three's a stretch, though.
Yeah, three
Yes.
is more you can start leaning towards that hybrid list that people are testing out. But yeah, I think I found with two, I found that you can actually find more OTK potential lines with your blizzards because you're doing the Brio bounce for 46. Like that comes up more often. And like you'll have more resources in your grave to take advantage. Like you're more likely to have Soroka Vayu in grave. You're more likely to have like Soroka Armed Wing in grave or Armed Wing Vayu in grave. And so like your grind game becomes better for sure because of the values, but yeah, it's just at the cost of brickiness, and it's your decision as a player if you want to play more of that style or higher ceiling. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, would you say you would, you're if you're playing two value, you're reaching for a higher ceiling, but with one value, you're maybe trying to stick with a little more consistency?
yeah, you're just basically not trying to draw too many bricks. Like you want all playable hands. And like if someone draws a lot of pressure when you draw double value, that can feel pretty bad because you can't set into them. And but I mean, Vayu on its own is obviously a strong card because the top two of the top three decks run multiple of them. So yeah, it's definitely this deck gets to convert it with Icarus, and the other deck they get to convert it with like Greffers and um, the dark packages. So it's definitely a pick your evil, like how you want to win with this card because it's definitely one of the strongest cards of this format.
Sure, sure. Now when we come to the spells, I really don't see how this ever changes. I have seen some people not main Mystical Space Typhoon, but I do think that's kind of crazy. I would say you need Mystical Space Typhoon, especially with Oppression and Whirlwind, with those two cards running around. Uh, would you guys say that that's I can't speak. I'm sorry. Typhoon is a mainstay as well, or would you
Yeah,
consider?
I think for Blackwing specifically, because you have Ica, which pressures them to only set one back row, MST becomes a lot stronger. And so these six spells here are basically like your auto includes in every Blackwing build.
Right.
I do know that like the YCS Bologna list doesn't run Allure, so that's his decision, and that's definitely a wild one. I guess he just didn't want to have to like banish any of his cards. He just wanted to play like chainable stuff, and so it worked for him, and he won with that an allureless build. But I would say 99% of the builds definitely should be running these six spells. They're just too powerful, and they're just too flexible as far as what they do for the deck. And yeah, and yeah, being one of the best brain control decks because braining for damage and yeah, it's just all these are pretty required, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much just playing like the. I feel like a lot of decks focus on like the power spells that can play in. These six pretty much just fit that criteria. And yeah, on the topic of MST, it's just really versatile for this deck, being able to have responses, but also because you're like Eric said, like threatening Icarus constantly. Um, it's another tool that can give you an advantage, and uh, just as you said, Jason, just the fact that you can use it on whirlwinds, other people's whirlwinds, is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving over to the traps, you got your two Bottomless, two Prison, two Icarus Mirror Force, and Dust Shoot. So the first thing that obviously you would say is why only two Icarus. Also, personally speaking, I have had success with two Icarus before, so I can understand someone playing two Icarus. But from this standpoint of the main cards that you cannot take out, you have to at least play two Icarus attack in this deck. It is necessary. It is one of the best cards in the deck. You must play at least two.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like it's definitely one of your power cards of the deck. It's one of the most annoying cards your opponents have to play around the whole game. It's just yeah, it's Icarus attack. It trades 2 for 2, and then when you're clearing down to low resources and you're refueling with Whirlwind or popping games with Dad, like the ability to go +1 off Icarus is just too crazy. So if anyone doesn't have experience into the Blackwing matchup, definitely get heavily punished by this card. But that's what makes the deck so popular and what makes everyone also very good at playing around this card. So that could be the reason why people went down to twos, because it's just one of the most expected punishes from this deck.
Yeah, I think Icarus is a big part of why this deck is so strong. So, two at a minimum, I think is required. I think when it comes to this trap lineup, probably have a slightly different view, but I also think that based on like a lot of people's lists, like across the board, this is a really good start for building a trap lineup.
Yep,
Yes,
100%.
yeah. So I would say this is the basic. Like these are the main 31 cards here, and you have a roughly a 9 flex spot. Um, I think that yeah, this is just I would say this is just how you have to start. You got to start from here, and then the way you build off after this is how you're gonna construct the rest of the deck. Like, are you gonna end the third Bora, the third Icarus, the second Vayu, and then on top of those other cards, what are you gonna put with it that's gonna fit well with your play style or the way you're making this deck to cater how you wanna play it.
Yeah, I think the main thing I would say with this trap lineup, I think my only difference actually might be one card or two cards, I guess, because I like three Icarus because I think Icarus is what makes the deck really strong. Whether you're playing a good player or like a beginner who might not be as knowledgeable, the constant threat of it I think is always looming. And eventually, if you get to game states where like they just have to accept like if they have it, they have it. The fact that it's a three of in the deck or it can be a three of, I think makes it all the more threatening. But I think the other card for me is Solemn Judgment, because this deck, is a lot of it is about pressure, a lot of it is about strong board presence. I think Solemn adds to that, but yeah, I think some people don't play it, and I totally get why.
And just want to make a quick note here, the partial extra deck here, you always play two Armwing, you always play at least one Armmaster, and Silverwind does come up, so you do play the one Silverwind. Um, moving
Yep.
on, yeah, moving on to a standard Blackwing list, probably looks something like this. Except, I took a couple of cards, added them in. I also want to give a small shout out to Maniac Lord, who sent me a basic Blackwing deck. I think I just changed a couple of cards here, but this is probably your general standard Blackwing deck that you'll see. Obviously you got three of everything except for the obvious ones, Gale and Vayu. This one's got the two Vayu. I would say Book of Moon would be a good generic card to use for someone starting or someone coming back to Edison or wanting to play the deck. Mind Control, I'd say, is pretty generic and can be very helpful as well. Obviously, I got to add in the third Icarus here. Just because of the format, I think the one Oppression makes sense. I put the Judgment in, as you said, because the card's just too good by itself. I threw in Torrential here because that's also very standard and it's a very good card. And Road because it helps, makes you feel a little more protected when setting your back row. What do you guys think about the overall deck here, or maybe maybe a card or two you'd change for a standard deck?
Yeah, I think this is a very fundamental, just solid Blackwing list. I think there's a few techs in here that make it pretty fun. Like the biggest techs, yeah, definitely Book of Moon, Mind Control, and Starlight Road are probably the biggest three. But like if you took this to ladder and started grinding it, you definitely will start. This is a good starter package, and then you can pull cards in and out that you feel are not of value to you, or like you're not getting high value out of. Typically, that those cards will be the ones I mentioned. Like Book of Moon into Vayu is very almost useless. Like you don't want to reset their synchros and flip their monsters back down for them. So, but against a variety of other decks, it can be very good because like they just get flipped down, and then you can run them over with Shura for battle. It's a very fundamental um, and high floor type of deck, so that's why you can see a lot of success from Blackwings, even if the player might not be the most fully experienced because they're resolving Whirlwind all day. And I think that can definitely give Blackwing a like helmet deck type of name, but there's a lot of interactions and small specific points you can try to do to make it squeeze the extra value out of every one of your cards. So I think the fact it has a high floor and the fact that you can also reach a high ceiling with the deck makes it really rewarding and an enjoyable one to play.
Yeah, I think this list also gives a pretty good introduction, just like um, to Edison format and also how to play Blackwings in the format. I think the big benefit of the two value again is like if you're getting started and you brick on it, you might think, oh man, like a brick like. But it also teaches you, how to work those situations and how you can potentially use the value in other ways. The mind control, just as you said, at the end of the day, there are four usable tuners and two more that can, be used potentially. So this is a deck where mind control can be pretty playable. The book, I think is a good starting tech because I think a lot of people just think of it as a good versatile card. But just as Eric was saying, I think there are some matchups in the big three, especially quote unquote big three, where it might not be as good, but regardless, it's still a good starting point. And then, yeah, the other traps, I think, they're pretty much just like power traps, so they kind of help you get comfortable with the deck.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with all those, and using this as a base is definitely a great start. Looking at the side deck here, I just basically took the three generic monsters that you see in every Blackwing deck: Cyber Dragon, DD Crow, Fossil Dyna. I don't think we could say anything crazy about that. I know there's been a lot of changes over the last year or two with cutting down on some of them, but I'd say that's pretty much the generic three that you'll see. So I put two of those here. Your Noman Crossroads always good to hit the Hamster and Rykos normally. Deck Devi is just always good against frogs. Even people side against some Blackwings now because it hits all the lower Blackwing monsters. You have your two back row hates and Dust Tornado. You have your two pulling rugs also against frogs and monarchs, and the second oppression because oppression is just a really good card in Edison format. Any thoughts on the standard side deck?
Yeah, I think this just looks like a really, like solid Blackwing side deck or just generic side deck in general. Like if you put these exact same cards in, maybe not a value side deck, but a lot of these just are applicable into many matchups. And so, like if you told me this list won Anaheim in 2 weeks or however long, I wouldn't be like that shocked because Blackwings are just that strong of a deck because if it's their day, that they will run through that tournament faster than any other deck. But definitely everyone is prepared for this deck. That's the biggest downside. Is that everyone knows how to play like, at the highest level. Everyone knows how to deal with Icarus. You're not going to find as much value out of your oppression or like your board's not gonna your sure's not gonna run over things for free. So as the ceiling of the player as the skill of the opponent raises, that's when you can start varying your side deck to kind of account for that. And so I think the side deck is very very good place to start. It's just you can kind of be intuitive as far as like your opponent's doing graveyard plays. So you want to side in some crows. You notice that they're on 1500 less attack monsters. You can side in deck devies, and you'll start building those fundamentals to start getting um, better at playing Edison format.
Yeah, I think a big thing for the side too is that it's not quite constructed like a modern side, and where it's like just threes, and so like five triplets, but there's like seven duplicates, and the last one is a card that you're already playing. So the approaches for the cards are pretty much just laid out there, just as Eric was saying. And once you get more comfortable, you can adjust those cards. So these cards, I think, also cover a really good span of a lot of the matchups you will see in like tier one, tier two. Um, and that's it. When it comes to some very niche matchups where maybe these cards might not be as good. At the end of the day, you're playing Blackwings, so it's a strong deck in itself.
Right. Uh, And then also now looking at the extra deck here, I guess you guys could say this is pretty standard and not much to say about that. This is what a Blackwing extra deck looks like for the most part.
Yep, that is card for card what I think my extra deck looked like for the past month or two. I think Armor Master. Well, you're playing double value, so I think double Armor Master makes sense here. But yeah, some people sub out the Armor Master for a Mistworm, and that's like the only thing that really changes.
I've even
Um,
seen a second Catastor sometimes,
yep.
which
Second
is,
Catastor,
yeah,
potentially second Stardust, I guess too is one of those plays.
yeah, there's been some odd choices, but this is definitely, I would say, the basic main
Yeah,
extra that,
it's definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, when I was first getting back into Edison format, and one person I talked to and just kind of getting familiar with Blackwings, especially again, was Chillphil, and he gave a pretty good tip. I don't remember if it was to me or just like in a generic like a video, but playing like equalizing the number of armor masters to the number of values you're playing when it comes to Blackwings at least. Of course, if you're playing Value Turbo, I mean, I don't think you're ever going more than two really, but like if you go down to one value, you probably don't need two armor masters. So it's kind of there. But again, if you have two values, there's a chance. And I've definitely had, I think, more opportunities to make two armor masters than like Mistworm, but that's just me.
All right. Now, moving on to the final topic, which would be moving to some card choices that have been circling around for the past year or two. So, starting from your basic Blackwing deck you have here, you've probably seen some of these cards that have been in and out of the deck. Um, I would say these cards are to your preference and play style and how you want to construct your deck. So, if you go back to the main picture here, starting off with these 31, and from there is how you construct and then decide on some of these cards. For example, the draw traps and upstart are really, really big. What are your guys' opinion between the draw traps or upstart, and the positive negatives with both as well?
Yeah, so I think with this year, shout outs to HG19, but he kind of created that um, six draw trap meta. So like we saw him have success in RBTLA with three legacy, three jar, and I know before he tested in Chicago with three upstart, three reckless as well in his build. So the man just likes to draw cards, and so he found a perfect middle ground there to punish the meta with those six draw traps, and I think that actually helped solve Blackwing a lot. Like progresses the deck a lot farther than before, because before you'd get punished by Hero Beat when it was a thing, because Gemini Spark would always hit a real back row. Their heavy storms are always hitting real back row if you don't have like Starlight or Solemn to protect. And now that you have a like mind game slash like just even the idea that it could be not real some of the time, it forces different interactions. It forces them to play a more complicated game state, and so yeah, the draw traps have definitely helped, I think, alleviate a lot of the deck's problems, and it draws you into more damage, which is definitely the main appeal. And so that's why Upstart, I would assume, didn't make the cut, is because even if you're drawing more damage, now you're also giving them life at the same time, and that's not kind of the theory of the deck. And no, there's definitely builds that have succeeded with Upstart because you're drawing into some of the strongest cards in the game with Dad and Whirlwind and everything. But I think that's kind of the theorio behind these draw trap cards or draw cards in general.
Yeah, I think when it comes to these three draw cards, the two traps, have especially since whenever LA was, yeah, have seen a significant uptick in play, and even before then, we were seeing Yadas for the most part, 2 to 3, and I think a big part of it is Pro Storm puts it in a really good way where it makes your opponent play suboptimally, and I feel like this is especially relevant IRL. Um, when there are other factors in play besides just you sitting at the computer being able to track stuff, because it makes your opponent really have to think, what are they trying to do here? And when it comes to the upstart, I think it can be good. I am a fan of it, but I think it requires more knowledge of the deck because, especially if you play, like two or especially three upstarts in one game, you're giving them more than like one attack from your like most of your Blackwings. So it is something you have to consider. And like the people who have had success with Upstart, people like Masha, like Frazier, are very experienced, very good players. So they know what they're doing and they know how to like plan their turns and strategies while playing Upstart. So I think there's a learning curve to it, and it's also something I haven't really done myself.
Yeah, I've tested both, and I've tested even without them. And currently, right now, I actually miss having some of the draw traps because I enjoyed the little bit of speed that it gave. I tried Upstart multiple times. I personally just don't like it because every time that I've played it, giving my opponent those 1,000 life points mattered every single time that I've played Upstart. But I can understand that in some tournaments that don't play uh, time rules or like anything, or especially like online or something, a lot of those tournaments don't have an unlimited time. So Upstart, I can understand can work in that case. But if you were playing in real life, you know, depending on your play style, maybe Upstart isn't that good there. Also, just quick shout out to Dimitri who got second place with Blackwings, and he went the Hector route and ran 3 Legacy and 3 Jar.
Yeah, that's sick. Yeah, Blackwing's doing pretty well. It did lose to Hero Frog in the end. Shout out
It
to
did.
Sunny as well. Which is just two of the best decks of the format at the moment. And um, yeah, I think also shout out to Ludo. I think he might have been the one that started the draw trap trend, like with
Yeah.
Yada.
Yeah, I believe so.
So yeah. So definitely give flowers there to Ludo for starting it off, and then Hector for testing and pushing it to the limit of full on 6 draw traps. And then yeah, definitely to this day, even if just by seeing lists that have 6 draw traps, it forces people to be just cognizant of if you're even on multiple draw traps, if any at all. So yeah, that's pretty good flex card for sure.
How about the next card, Gores? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think in combination with the draw traps, it makes Gores even better.
Hmm.
So like before, people would say, well, you can't run Gores in Blackwing because you run Oppression, Whirlwind, Starlight, and all these other different cards, and so it's like Gores will just be stuck in your hand and you'll lose the game because of it. But now that it's kind of turned the tail on like with these draw traps, is because now you're using Gores almost aggressively in the sense that you can trade for their back row by baiting. Like you'll drop Gores off a draw trap, and now you're wasting their back row on the Gores, and then your monsters are now going to be dropped for free because there's no more um, way to clear your monsters as efficiently as they would have without Gores. And yeah, I just think he's a really good card that punishes people for attacking in the wrong sequence, which happens more IRL than like on DB for example. But I've been liking Gores a lot lately. Not sure how you feel, Harrison.
Oh, I love this card. Yeah, I didn't play it at LA, but it was something I considered and something I ultimately played when we were at Nats. And my thought behind playing Wars was like a big, I guess big. I don't know if you'd say big, but like a weakness of the deck is that in certain situations of losing board control, especially to like bigger monsters, um, sometimes you just can't deal with it, and Gores gives you that chance to do so. Uh, it's like one of the few cards that can come back from really tough situations, and that's why I really liked it. And its value, just as you guys have both said, lies in some of the deck building with these chainables. Like I think even beyond the draw traps, like I think I might have used it with Dushu too. So yeah, you can really milk Gores in a lot of different ways. And again, like if you are saying like, well, you have Whirlwind Depression, like how are you going to play Gores? If you have those up, you're probably, especially Whirlwind, you're probably winning. So yeah,
Yeah, I would definitely say Gores makes sense when you're playing the draw traps a little bit more. So if you're not playing the draw traps and you like having legit traps, maybe Gore doesn't make as much sense because Eric, as you said, you got Whirlwind and Oppression sitting up, so it does kind of get in the way of being able to drop Gores. So I do think that in that case, if you plan on running it, you want to make sure that you don't put yourself in a situation where Gores is dead if you haven't seen the card yet.
Yep.
yeah. Gores good.
Gore's good.
The next card here, Deck Devastation Virus. I think this card is a staple at 1
In the main.
in the main because just with all the decks out there and the fact that you can see your opponent's hand and the fact that not siding it in. Well, the thing is, when you're siding it games 2 and 3, especially a deck that's weak to deck Debbie, I think if your opponent knowing that, they side down on the monsters, making deck Debbie not as good in games 2 and 3. So I think having it and using it game one makes a lot more sense and you get more value out of it.
Yeah, yeah, deck Debbie has definitely been like the flavor of this year, or like the spice. I don't know.
Definitely has.
Um, yeah, so like main, especially main deck Debbie. Like, shout out to Sackface, my boy Eric. He main two at Rally, and it paid off for him because he got top 8 there. And now every value player that I'm seeing on ladder is maining two, or like deckless online are maining two. So yeah, shout out to him for making this format more toxic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean the card is definitely it's a gatekeep type of card. Like if your deck can't deal with this games all throughout all games 1 through 3, your deck likely cannot contend for the top 3 spots. It like you can fight and you can win games where they resolve deck type against you. It's just a lot harder when they have full info and checking your draws for 2 more turns after the fact you activate this. And that's why I think the next couple of cards are what helps to address this deck dev like bonanza that's going on. So a lot of decks are on like that triple trap stun tech too.
Yeah, and especially with good players, like I feel like one thing that's consistent amongst everyone when they talk about deck dev in the main, regardless of whether it's Blackwings, Fire Turbo, um, Diva Hero, is that it gives you knowledge, and with good players, they can do so much with knowledge. So yeah.
100% agree.
I totally agree. Moving on to Trap Stun, I've seen that, starting to make its way into the deck now. I even made one at RBT New York, and I think I did mention last time that it did help me win a game against Dreamfrog because I chained it to a Regeki break, so they went -1 on that. What do you guys think about Trap Stun in the main?
In the main, it's definitely a spicy take. You're like wanting to stop any power cards like deck devi, return, mirror force torrential, board wipes. So it's definitely a cool tech. It's pretty unexpected, but I feel like we play a bit too many traps that I might want to interrupt with on the same turn, whether it be Dust or Ikra or even draw traps on my turn. Like I obviously can chain it, but I might not always want to do that. And so I personally am not the biggest fan of Trap Stun, but I know it's had a lot of success. And I think coming at your opponents with multiple different angles and different ways to play around their cards, whether it be Dust or Trap Stun and Dark Illusion even, it's just good to keep mixing them up because Blackwings are a threat heavy deck, and when you like attack at all these different angles, it can convert to wins more often than not.
Yeah, I think for me with Trap Sun, I initially considered it more of a side card, but I can see value in it in Trap Sun being in the main. I can't remember if anyone besides like you and Juan have really played this recently, um, or like any of the recent lists have played Trap Sun, especially in the main. I feel like thinking about it in the main, it's kind of like GBs where they're like super trap reliant, but at the same time, sometimes it just is able to lock down the board. But uh, yeah, I think I also value a lot of the other traps where I would probably side it over main it. Yeah,
Yeah, I could also, going now, moving to the next card with Dust Tornado, kind of like they, essentially do the same thing, except Dust Tornado completely just gets rid of the card, but also has that wonderful second effect where definitely, you can set Solemn Judgment, set Icarus, just set some, or even like Dark Illusion if you wanted to, if you're expecting a targeting card the following turn. Um, but starting with AJT BLS, who threw in the double Dust Tornado, I think started making Dust Tornado kind of big in the main. And I have teched Dust Tornado in the main before. Um, I still think it's a great card. Definitely one of the best decks to have it in the main deck. Opinions on Dust Tornado there?
Yeah, I think it just kind of speaks to how good MST is because when they're setting one back row because they can't afford to play around Ica, um, this Dust Tornado just trades for that back row, and your monster quality is very high and very explosive, so that you can convert those monsters into really strong advantages, whether it be like the Shura Gale combo, the Sirocco Bora Gale combo, like even just Sirocco Bora Pump is like a crazy amount of damage depending on the matchup and everything. So Yeah, Dust Tornadoes is definitely a very strong card. For how simple it is, it's like really strong in Blackwing specifically because of the, the mind games that they have to be aware of for Ika and all that. And I can definitely see why it's having a lot more success lately because there's a lot more trap heavy decks such as like Bayou, GBs, and other decks like that out there.
Yeah, I think it's in its versatility. Like it's really popular in goats. I know. So and I think especially this year, it's carried forward as like one of like a crowd favorite almost of a like side deck card, and especially in Blackwings, seeing it splash between the main and side, uh, just gives you an extra opportunity. And again, that second effect is actually really important, especially with cards like Icarus, cards like especially deck dev if you're reading it too. That's another one. Uh, yeah, it's really versatile and super helpful. So really like it on the board.
Yeah, going over Trunade now, I don't think there's really much to say about it. I have seen some people throw this into the main, and I can understand, makes the field completely empty, so you're able to summon everything, and everything can get through. You can even use it to bring back your Whirlwind and your Oppression back, so now your Gores is live if it was dead beforehand. Um, what are you guys' opinion on Trunade?
Yeah, I think Trunade being an inherent -1 card, it's definitely one of the riskier cards to play, whether it be like Cold Wave, Trunade, some kind of sweeper like that. But you're basically going to combo that turn no matter what now because there's no more threat of a back row, and there's such a limited amount of hand traps in Edison. So like I think the only one you'd be concerned with is Herald and of Orange Light, and so like Kalute and Honest. So there's not really too much, oh, and Crow, I guess. But like as far as summoning goes and resolving effects and comboing out, Herald is the only one that stops you, and 99% of decks can't play Herald. So Trunade is definitely you definitely get your +1 back through either through battle or synchroing or however you want your flavor to be. But Trunade lets you guarantee your push gets through, and I think it's definitely had some success, and you can definitely see why because the monster cards um, are very cohesive together and work well together.
Yeah, I think it's just really a personal preference card because of all those points mentioned. But yeah, it can be good.
Yeah, so now the next card, Mind Control, I think is a little Uh, it's kind of interesting because there are people that just love mind control and there are people that just don't like mind control, and I can understand both sides. Seeing it going first isn't a great feeling, and then as I was saying before, depending on how you construct your deck, if you're on like only one value, so maybe with only three Blizzard and one Gale and one value, maybe to you that's not enough tuners to play mind control, and then having the second value, maybe mind control makes a little more sense. Mind control is also good when taking an opponent's hamster or Raikou and flipping it and making sure that they don't get the effect, and then syncing with the monster is also great. But all in itself, what do you guys think of mind control?
Yeah, I think it's just a one of those high variance payoff cards. Like if you ever resolve and take their Raikou and you're also able to synchro off with it. Like say you milled like a level 4 with Blizzard, and now you have a Stardust on your field against Vayu, and they didn't get a mill. Like you're infinitely ahead of them in that game. So it's definitely one of the power cards in the Vayu matchup, which is a very very popular deck. It might not be as strong into other matchups, but it's just your your decision as to how you want to play the deck. If you want to have these types of bombs in your deck, which I think are very valid to play, um, it's definitely one of the better ones out there.
I feel like for me, mind control is like one of the few cards where I really want to fit it in the main 40. Like if I can, I feel like it's a really good tempo swing and give you knowledge. Can take monsters that are just giving you problems. But I feel like oftentimes I end up siding it. So yeah, but I think it has a lot of value in this deck for sure.
Yeah. I think most people use it in the combo of mind control and Raikou side. So when they play against a deck that has hamster, they hope that they take the hamster and then get the effect and get their own Raikou out of their own deck.
Yep, yeah, that's definitely a side pattern I've tried in the past as well. Is to use this Minecon Raikou package, because no matter which face down, as long as it's hamster or Raikou, you're benefiting and plussing off of it. So yeah, I think it's definitely a valid strat. It definitely sucks if you played that package and you took like a Vayu and like or a Sangan or whatever, um, card it might be. Like that's the risk you play when you're playing a card like Minecon. Also, another thing is that you can't take Stardust. Well, you can, but you can't use its effect because the monster can't be tributed. And that's just something to be aware of if you're starting out and playing this card, thinking that you can just take Stardust and then do everything you want afterwards.
Yeah, that's a really important point about the Stardust.
Yeah. Another small point that I just found out a while ago, actually, but I think this happened twice to my knowledge, where someone mind controlled a set botanical lion, and then they mind controlled a face down, and then once if the person is smart, they will flip the botanical lion, and now they don't get the botanical lion back because the botanical lion can't change its battle position.
Dude, yeah, that's crazy.
That's a
I
funny
think, yeah, once
interaction.
you told me that, it was like, wow.
Yeah, which I think is pretty crazy. So those are just some benefits with mind control. Now with the last two cards here, we have the famous Dimitri card. We have Dark Illusion. Now, I personally love Dark Illusion. Eric Chai also loves Dark Illusion.
That's true. I do love this card, or I did love this card a lot. It helped me win my first TGS monthly. Definitely helped me win LT Kai, so I attribute a lot of the success of winning my early rounds against Blackwing Mirror because of this card. Stopping Sirocco Pump, stopping Ica, targeting my monster, stopping Dark Arm, targeting my monster. It's just one of the higher payoff cards. The only downside is when cards don't target your monster. So Bottomless, Mirror, TT, you can't play around those. So it the the highs of the card are really high. The lows can feel pretty bad because now your monster's not protected. You don't have another monster for another turn at least, and so yeah, it's definitely one of the one I think one of the higher payoff cards that you can run in the deck. And I used it as a pseudo Solemn back then when I didn't feel that Solemn was that strong. I didn't like playing life. I liked extending the games out longer, and Dark Illusion definitely helped fill that spot as like an Omni Negate type of card. And yeah, I still have a lot of love for that card. It's really cool. And yeah, shout out to Dimitri for doing that strategy of just siding it, playing like 3 Dark Illusions in that build with 0 Icarus attack because everyone was so focused on playing around Icarus that they forgot that you know Dark Illusion can punish you as well.
Yeah, and when he got second, he mained one and sided one, which is what I did at YCS at RBT Maryland, and it helped me win against a Amaryllis player where he went Mark of the Rose, Dark Illusion, and then like 2 turns later he went Brain Control, second Dark Illusion, ended up ending that game, which was fantastic. But I do think Dark Illusion is one of those cards where you want to be a little weary of like when to set it. You want to be a little bit more careful, as you said, in case haven't seen like a bottomless torrential or mirror force yet, and you've gone through maybe like a prison or two or something. So you're gonna probably see, maybe less targeting cards, and you'll probably see the more cards that don't target.
Yep.
Yeah.
Harrison, any thoughts on Dark Illusion yourself, or?
I think for me this card it took more time for me to warm up to because I know you guys are big enjoyers. I feel like I saw it more as like a tech card. But watching how you guys both use it, watching Dimitri use it, um, and trying it out for a bit, it's good. But just like you guys say, I think it's a little more niche. Has more like niche cases, so um, like for that reason, it might not be as good, especially to like a beginning player. But I think it's a great meta call, and if it pays off, it can pay off. Super strong, and because it's a counter spell, especially there's not that much you can do about it
And
or
well,
counter trap.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
speaking of counter traps, our very last card, Solemn Judgment. Now, this has been a whole back and forth thing, side, main, not played at all. What are you guys' thoughts when it comes to Solemn Judgment? I'm personally siding it right now. I don't mind maining it if I can swap a card and find room for it, but currently I'm okay not having it in the main personally. I like it against certain matchups when going first or going second. So that's my reason why I'm not maining it. I know that Dimitri in his list, he doesn't like, I don't know if he doesn't like it, but he didn't play Solemn Judgment at all, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but to each their own. Some people think Solemn Judgment's great. You just got to know when to use it and how to use it properly. What do you guys think about Solemn Judgment and your personal opinions with it?
I think it's a really good card. I mean, obviously, it's Omni Negate, so like you can't go wrong with that. It's just yeah, it's like a skill expression card for sure. Like setting it too early at the wrong time can cost you the game, and it might not feel like it costs you the game because it'll happen turns later where you lose the game after your resources are down and you're getting OTK'd for 4,000. And so it's not the easiest card to tell when you lost with it, but it's definitely an easy card to tell when you win with it because you know you're 3-1 card and then you saw them their one play and you win the game. So you have to make sure you're not being biased in the fact that Solemn is just winning you every game. But it's definitely a really, really strong card. It's definitely, I think, better for aggressive decks like Blackwing and Vayu as well. So being able to, you know, go plus on your turn, combo out, and then set up your board um, with multiple traps behind and a Solemn makes it very, very hard for your opponents to break that board usually in one or two turns.
Man, okay. Just as you guys were talking about how you both love Dark Illusion, this is, I think, how much I love Solemn. uh, and I think a lot of like content creators in the Yu-Gi-Oh space or like really knowledgeable people get a lot of content out of like using this card as like a ways you can improve as a player. And that just to Eric's point, it's like when to set solemn is super important. I think one big thing or one thing we a lot of us think about solemn like early on in play is from like like I can set solemn now with like five back rows and I can negate heavy storm if I need to. But then that raises the other question of do I need to set five spell traps with solemn here, or can I just set like 1, 2 and space out the my hand over the turns of the match or the game? Because you're also giving your opponent that information of, hey, I have five spell traps and one of these is probably going to negate your backer removal. So um, yeah, if you set it at the right time, it just gives you that like complete lockout that you need to be a little more like ignorant of your opponent's potential comeback plays. um, and yeah, it does come at the cost of half your life, but the fact that it is just an omni negate is just phenomenal to me. So I feel like this is a card I can never give up, at
Yeah,
least
and
in the main. I will side it out in some games, but yeah.
yeah, definitely, and the fact that you can always activate it because you'll always have half your life is, pretty good. I mean, there'll be spots where you can die either way to Solemn, but, the fact you will always have half your life available to activate this card is pretty broken, unlike a card like My Body, for example, where you might be under 1,500 and now all of a sudden, instead of a card that's omni-negating, it's actually just a -1, so, yeah, definitely shout outs to Solemn being OP.
Yeah, I'll also give a small shout out to Rev, who actually made I think it was like a 10-minute video giving reasons why Solemn Judgment is very good and how to use it and when to use it. So if anyone watching this video wants to learn a little more about Solemn Judgment, definitely go check out his video. Um, I guess I would say we're getting to the end here. Do you guys have any final thoughts regarding the standard Blackwing deck here, or some of the other
No,
choices?
just yeah. Feel free to ping. I'm sure any of us on Discord if you have any questions on Blackwing. I'm happy to see this deck do well, and we'll continue to monitor like any meta shifts, and then we'll be back soon. So feel free to let us know what you want to see next.
Yeah, I think, the big talking point about this video is that this is a good way for beginners who want to just get started to like see what it's like to play Black Wings. It's a good list, and if you are like, why am I playing this card? Um, you know, that gives you the opportunity to try other things out and see what not just you like, but like what's good in certain matchups, in certain metas, even like your scenes or like small scale, big scale tournaments. But yeah, I just kind of hope this helps to uh, like continue to give people the knowledge for building and playing Blackwings.
And for anyone going to YCS Anaheim, these two guys will be there. I promise they will not bite. You can go and say hi to them if you like. I'm sure they will be very nice to
Yeah, come say hi, because I don't
Please.
want to go O2.
you. All right, so I think we will cut it here. Thank you again for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And everyone have a wonderful Thanksgiving week. And stay safe, everybody.
Yeah, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Nice.